Hello, folks, and welcome back. We are here for a round number 6 look at the Vancouver Regionals Championships that happened last weekend as of the recording of this video here. And notably, round number 6 is where it starts getting into crunch time for day 2 cut. There were 8 rounds in day 1 of Vancouver. If you can win round 6, if you can get to 6 wins, you have a really good chance of making it into day 2, as in I'm pretty sure you're guaranteed to make it into day 2. And that gives you a phenomenal chance and making it into top cut. So let's go ahead, slide on over to get towards the start of this game. We have Brian Collins and Joseph Ugarte here. This is Joe's second time, I believe, on stream since EUIC, and both these players have some pretty interesting tech. Calyrex Ice Rider and Torkoal duo is something that I've been seeing a lot on the ladder that you see in usage stats. They're partnered a lot because Calyrex Ice Rider and Torkoal are both super slow, but Calyrex is a physical attacker, and Torkoal, with that eruption, just insane choice spec eruption damage, can do so much work, especially if it goes Terra Fire. This Calyrex does not have high horsepower, it is close combat, otherwise it's a pretty standard set. Torkoal is Eruption, Heat Wave, Weather Ball, and Earth Power. In DDF here with Terra Dragon, Psychic Seed, a pretty standard moveset with Psychic, particularly notable, no Protect. Urshifu Single Strike here with Terra Grass, it is Choice Band, we've been seeing a lot of that. It also has Iron Defense. Okay, nope. All right, hold on. Am I crazy? Did that say Iron Defense? It did. Okay. Stream was gaslighting me. It's Iron Head, not Iron Defense. Raging Bolt with Terra Electric safety goggles. That's super interesting. Takes away the Fairy and Ice weaknesses with Thunderbolt, Thunderclap, Protect, and Draco Meteor. A lot of times you might see Dragon Pulse instead of Draco Meteor. And then Smeargle with Technician Focus Sash. Terra Grass so it can't get spored. And then it has its own Spore, Fake Out, Follow Me, and Decorate. Decorate here on either the Calyrex or the Torkoal is going to be the ideal for Brian Collins here. However, Urshifu Single Strike can also do a lot of damage outside of a potential Trick Room mode. The main things you're going to be looking at here for Brian is setting up Trick Room with Calyrex or Indeedee, having Torkoal and Calyrex on the field together do a lot of damage, and Smeargle to do some additional support alongside the Indeedee. The other modes that you can look at is some combination of Smeargle, Urshifu, and Raging Bolt, probably with one of your other 3 Pokemon. But if you're not trying to set up Trick Room, if you think Trick Room is not a super valid option, you can still obviously bring Torkoal or Calyrex. I think you'd probably bring Calyrex Ice Rider. Then you have your Raging Bolt and your Urshifu that can operate really well outside of Trick Room. Now, on the other side here, we have Joseph Ugarte. This is, I don't know if it's the exact same team as Joe brought to EUIC a couple of weeks prior, but it is the same 6 Pokemon, and we saw that this Grimmsnarl down on the bottom left was incredibly strong. Light Clay, Light Screen, and Reflect, Foul Play, and Thunder Wave does a ton of work. Directly next to it, you see the other Shining Star, Ditto here, Terra Normal, Focus Sash, Transform with that Imposter ability can give Joe a very useful additional Pokemon, including a potential additional restricted. Miraidon with the choice specs is the restricted of choice, though. Terra Fairy, Dazzling Gleam is the tried and true combo that we've seen a lot of. Electro Drift, Draco Meteor, and Volt Switch rounds out the moveset. Volcarona, Terra Grass here, Citrus Berry. This is a bulkier Volcarona with Fiery Dance, Giga Drain, Quiver Dance, and Protect. Sometimes we see Redirection here. That's what I assumed it was the previous time we saw this on stream. But this is more of a setup Volcarona that can still pump out a lot of damage. Those are both special attackers for Joe. On the physical attacking side, we have Urshifu Rapid Strike with Mystic Water and Swords Dance to buff up the damage on close combat and Surging Strikes. It is also Terra Poison to give it some good resistances. Iron Hands rounds things out here. Super standard, although we saw this previously at EUIC, Joe does not have Heavy Slam or Low Kick on this Pokemon. Instead, it is Volt Switch and Wild Charge as the other 2 options. Drain Punch and Fake Out seem to be the tried and true. Again, Terra Water, we see a lot of different terrestrializations for Iron Hands here. It depends entirely on what threats you feel are coming up in the metagame. So, coming into this, we talked a little bit about Brian having a lot of Trick Room options. That's a big primary thing for Brian Collins here. For Joe, you're really speedy. Setting up Light Screen and Reflect here can give you a huge advantage in the damage trades. And for Joe, for the most part, the rest of the team is super fast. Doesn't really have a lot of speed control to try to make anything change. Grimmsnarl with the Thunder Wave is going to be your main option here. And coming into this lead, we see the Grimmsnarl and Miraidon for Joe. And for Brian Collins here, we have the Calyrex Ice Rider and the Smeargle. Fake Out is live, and Spore is not. So the Smeargle cannot Spore, which feels really good. Miraidon has the choice specs, so that's pretty much going to guarantee Fake Out can stop it from attacking this turn. Grimmsnarl goes for the Reflect. That's going to mitigate Calyrex's damage here, but if you're Brian Collins, this is a really good opportunity to try to set up Trick Room, which means that your Calyrex is going to be moving really quickly, but instead just goes for the Glacial Lance. It's going to take Miraidon down very low, but that Reflect is huge for Joe. Now, this is very big in that Brian does not currently have Trick Room set up. I think, maybe if you're Brian there, you're anticipating Grimmsnarl trying to go for something else, maybe? I'm not certain, and then being able to get a clean KO on the Miraidon, but with this Miraidon really, really low, it's not a terrible position for Brian Collins to be in. That said, this can still be quite dangerous. There is still no Terrestrialization for Joe here. The Smeargle goes for Follow Me, and it is a Volt Switch from the Miraidon. It takes Smeargle down to a single HP, but this Miraidon is going to be able to get out of dodge, and so it is not going to be going down this turn. I'm interested to see what this Grimmsnarl goes for here. It is not going for... Actually, I mean, we know what it's going for here. It is going for its single attacking move, and we see Iron Hands take the stage here. This is a good answer into a potential Trick Room getting set up for Brian Collins, as Iron Hands now, especially with that Quark Drive activated, is going to feel really good. Foul Play does take down the Smeargle, so that does put Joseph up by one Pokemon, just barely though, and we don't know what the fourth Pokemon is yet. Calyrex goes for Glacial Lance again. It's going to do a good amount of damage, but again, that Reflect is coming through. Iron Hands is also incredibly bulky, and Drain Punch now is a major threat. We get a little sneak peek at what Brian Collins has in the back there, and we see the Indeedee female coming out. This is going to overwrite the electric terrain, but with this Miracle gone, Spore's not really going to feel too good. That said, it does stop the Iron Hands from going for a potential Fake Out. That is going to be very, very big. It also decreases its attack damage output by just a little bit. Indeedee's Psychic Seed does trigger here, but with the special defense boost, I don't know quite how much that is going to matter if Miraidon comes back onto the field. It'll have that electric terrain boost, and it can do a ton of damage, but Indeedee can be trained to be quite bulky. I don't know if it can be trained to take an Electro Drift. Can it be trained to potentially take a Foul Play plus Drain Punch / Volt Switch? I think so. We do see a Terrestrialization coming out of Joe here. This is going to be a Terra Water on the Iron Hands. It's going to make it even more resistant to a potential Glacial Lance. It will also notably no longer be weak to a potential Psychic from the Indeedee. We see a Terrestrialization now coming out of Brian. I am fairly certain this is going to be into the Calyrex here, removing its fighting and dark weaknesses, going into Terra Fire. So a very defensive Terra here, doesn't have to worry too much about anything that Joe has. Even if there's a Volcarona in the back, Terra Fire here feels pretty good. And we see a Light Screen now come out of the Grimmsnarl just in case, especially if you're Joe. If you see this Indeedee, that's going to tell you that Brian has probably gone for this harder Trick Room mode, and that probably means that Torkoal is in the back. We see the Drain Punch come out of the Iron Hands. It does a decent amount into the Indeedee and heals Iron Hands up almost back to full. Glacial Lance comes through. Grimmsnarl is going to go down, but with decent damage into the Indeedee, I imagine we're going to see another Psychic come through here, or actually we might see the Trick Room, which would be very interesting. Chilling Neigh comes through for the Calyrex. Actually, I think we have to. Yes, we do have to indeed have to see the Trick Room. Indeedee should be faster than the Calyrex outside of Trick Room. Now, we also got to see that Joe's Iron Hands is faster than the Calyrex, but this is the fourth Pokemon for Joe. It is a shiny Ditto in the back. It is going to transform into an Ice Rider Calyrex. Joe now getting a chance at a second restricted Pokemon here, and Brian now has to worry about that opposing Calyrex. It's not quite going to be as bulky, and it should probably be faster than Brian's Calyrex, probably. I don't know for certain yet. I have not seen exactly the stats on this Ditto, but most of the time this Ditto is going to be speedy with full damage. But we see Joe go for the Protect first. Iron Hands should be all right on this turn to fend for itself. Indeedee goes for the Follow Me. We could see the Volt Switch here or the Wild Charge, but I would expect a Drain Punch. Glacial Lance comes through. This is going to do, again, a little bit into the Iron Hands, about another quarter of its HP, taking it down to just below half. But if you're Joe, you just go for an Iron Hand or a Drain Punch or a Volt Switch here. We do see the Volt Switch doesn't do a ton of damage. It is a special attacking move. Iron Hands is a physical attacking mon. Indeedee has that special defense boost, and Miraidon comes back out onto the field. However, Indeedee has not gone for an attack yet. The electric terrain coming back up could be pretty big in the long run. Actually, maybe Indeedee did go for an attack, and I just didn't. Oh, wait, it did. It followed me. What am I talking about? I was like, wait, hold on. When did it move? Yes, so the Indeedee did go for a Follow Me. That's my bad. And that gives Miraidon a pretty safe switch in here, quote unquote. But it can still very much go down to a single Glacial Lance. But we do see Brian bringing the Torkoal in here. Wants to save the Indeedee to be able to reset the Psychic terrain. Miraidon does go down, and Joseph's Ditto Calyrex takes a little bit of damage. That Focus Sash is broken. Now, I'm interested to see, do we see a potential close combat here? That is another Chilling Neigh boost for this Calyrex. It is just going to be the Glacial Lance. Both these Pokemon are going to resist it, but even with the resist, Torkoal takes a good chunk, as does Calyrex here. And Iron Hands is still a major threat. With that Terra Water as well, it really does not care all that much what Torkoal has to bring. And if you're Brian, if you want to get rid of this electric terrain boost, you're going to have to bring the Indeedee back in. Indeedee, notably, it shouldn't matter too much towards the end of this game, but Indeedee does no longer have the special defense boost from the Psychic Seed. But like I said, unless for some reason Joe clicks his Volt Switch, it really shouldn't matter. But Iron Hands can go for Drain Punches here. I don't think Brian has any effective way to take care of this Iron Hands now that it is Terra Water here. Fake Out comes through into the Torkoal. I think if you're Joe, you don't mind that all too much. The Close Combat comes in as well. Torkoal is gonna go down. Notably here, Joseph's Calyrex went before Brian's. So that is pretty big. That is a +1 on the Ditto's Chilling Neigh. Brian does go for a Close Combat into the Iron Hands, which does take it down, but that lowers Calyrex's defense and special defense, and Joe's Ditto is in a pretty good spot right now, especially if it's going to be moving before Brian's Calyrex, because right now, Joe should be able, there's still going to be a light screen up for one more turn. Indeedee can come in, but its only attacking move is Psychic, which currently Ditto resists. Joe can go for a Close Combat into the opposing Calyrex, which I imagine, especially after Brian went for a Close Combat, that should take it down pretty cleanly, especially now that Joe also has an attack boost. And then this Indeedee is going to be left to try to click Psychic into Ditto, which I don't think is going to be able to take it out. I think it's going to come down to it might come down to how many Trick Room turns there are, but the other option for Brian here is potentially follow me with the Indeedee, try to get, Close Combat off with your own Calyrex, which I think might be your best bet if that's going to be a one-hit KO. You're at +3. If you can follow me Close Combat, that just might do it. At the same time, so we see Indeedee goes for Helping Hand here. We see Joe getting pretty excited in the camera here. Close Combat comes through. That just takes down the Calyrex. That's a really tough spot for Brian here. You might be a little bit worried about Trick Room getting reset or something, but with no redirection coming out of the Indeedee, that leaves Brian's Calyrex very vulnerable. It goes down to the Close Combat. That should lead Joe into winning this end game here. That is another boost. And now this Calyrex, I believe, is still going to be moving after the Indeedee now that Trick Room is down. But I don't know if that's going to matter. It is at -2. Psychic is Brian's best bet, but no, does not go for it and instead concedes game one. Hey, that's always something where my Calyrex is at -2. I believe you're moving before it. You might get a critical hit and win, but Brian just goes for the concession. Again, if you want to run the calc, you can go and do that. I don't exactly have those numbers in my brain, but for game number 2 here, Joe probably feels pretty good about that. I don't think that Volcarona is an incredibly good option into Brian's team. It doesn't really have many good matchups, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see the same thing from Joe. Iron Hands is a great mon to bring against a Trick Room opponent. If you're Brian Collins, man, that was tough. You were able to get Trick Room up, but you weren't able to get a lot out of it. Again, the big thing here up against Joe's Grimmsnarl is trying to stop that thing, which is incredibly hard to do. That might be Smeargle's job, but we'll have to see if Brian can make the adaptation and make it happen. Coming into game number 2 here, Joe changes up the lead, leads Miraidon and Iron Hands off the rip. Brian Collins goes for the same. We have Calyrex and Smeargle. This doesn't necessarily mean that the same two are in the back for Brian, but I maybe wouldn't be too surprised. That said, both players can go for fake out trades here if they so choose. Smeargle should be the faster of the two fake outers. Spore, again, cannot come through due to that electric terrain, but Joe, we saw previously, the Miraidon did flinch, but it wanted to get out of there with a Volt Switch. If you are Brian, maybe you want to try to, maneuver around that, but more likely than not, your Pokemon, your Calyrex, is going to get hit by a fake out here. Actually, the Iron Hands goes for damage into the Smeargle instead. Glacial Lance comes through. We know Miraidon survives this from the previous one, but it does not. It was a roll, and it does not win this time around. I think that might be what Joe was anticipating. Okay, hey, Miraidon survives that, but I think we might have just gone low roll to high roll there on at least one of those moves. Actually, never mind. What am I talking about? There was no Reflect Up. Reflect is the reason why the Miraidon survived last time, and it does not survive this time. Grimmsnarl is now on the field, and Iron Hands has taken a significant chunk of damage. Reflect now can come up, but if you are Joe, you've already lost your Miraidon and your Iron Hands is chipped. Smeargle's Focus Sash is broken, but that turn 1 did not go nearly as well as your previous turn 1. Smeargle goes for Follow Me here. This is a really good opportunity for Calyrex to get Trick Room up. Drain Punch comes through. That should heal this Iron Hands up. I don't know if it's going to go all the way to full. Smeargle doesn't exactly have that much HP. Yeah, it heals up a little bit here. Notably, we do not see a Prankster move coming out of this Grimmsnarl, so that is telling me that it is going for an attack. Foul Play is going into this Ice Rider here, and it KOs it in one shot. That is incredible damage. I don't know if that is a guaranteed KO. In fact, I believe that that is a roll, but if you are Brian Collins, that feels horrible. You are in such a good spot. With that Miraidon down, Trick Room getting up there would have been absolutely massive, but Foul Play, it's such a powerful move. It's great against so many things in this format. Now we see Torkoal and Indeedee on the field, and if you're Joe, well, I think there's a good chance you just click Light Screen and you terrestrialize your Iron Hands, and you should be able to take home this game. We haven't even seen the last Pokemon in the back here for Joe. If it's a potential Ditto and you can let your Grimmsnarl go down somehow, then bringing that in as an Indeedee where you can throw out some Follow Me's potentially feels pretty good as needed. That said, this might just be an Iron Hands wins the video game instance here. Joe is going for the Terrestrialization. This is almost certainly going to be the Iron Hands. That's exactly what we see here. That also takes it away from the potential ground type weakness that we saw Torkoal have at least one of those moves. But also, this is big here. Whatever move Torkoal locks in here, it's going to be stuck in that move. It is indeed choice specs. We see Brian Collins going for a Terrestrialization here as well, I imagine. Yeah, Terrifier on that Torkoal. You're going to be trying to get max damage here. Weather Ball is single target damage. It's going to be quite a bit. Heat Wave has a chance to miss, but probably does the most for you here if you can get 2 hits. But with this Light Screen up, this Iron Hands is going to be able to resist the Torkoal. It has Assault Vest. It's relatively healthy. It can Drain Punch to heal up even more. I don't think Torkoal wins these trades. Foul Play can come through to do some chip damage as well here and there. It's not the biggest, it's not the most useful thing in the world, but it absolutely could make things more favorable for Joe. Not that Joe exactly needs it. We saw that Iron Hands took no damage there. Grimmsnarl took a little bit, but Brian Collins is going to need some very good rolls in order to make this happen. You might as well fight to the end. If you can get a couple crits here, that just might do it. Heat Wave comes through again. Grimmsnarl should go down here. If not, yeah, be very, very close. Iron Hands goes almost to half. Indeedee's going to be able to follow up with a Psychic here. Should do a decent chunk of damage. I mean, when I say decent, I mean not nothing exactly. Takes it down below half health. Yeah, it does a little bit, but what? Ooh, the special defense drop is not nothing here. Drain Punch comes through again. Again, it's going to be a little bit more healing. Torkoal's in a rough spot. Iron Hands goes up. It heals a little bit more than what the Psychic did, but Ditto comes in now. All that this Ditto has to do is click Follow Me to essentially guarantee that this Indeedee isn't going to be able to get additional damage into the Iron Hands, but could also just go for a Helping Hand on the Drain Punch, and that should wrap things up here for this Torkoal here. Helping Hand Drain Punch would absolutely do it, and that's, I imagine, what we are going to see here. And then this Indeedee, poor Indeedee, might be left alone in a 2v1. Actually, you know, this Heat Wave, well, the Ditto's going to survive on 1 HP, even if it makes it. Even if it would do critical damage. Psychic comes through. It takes Iron Hands pretty darn low, but it does indeed survive. A crit there could have been the end for Joseph, but that does heal Iron Hands up back a little bit more. Now, that is to say, Brian got very close. I think a crit there makes things very, very tedious for Joe. Nigh on impossible, perchance, one might say. I think Follow Me guarantees that Psychic doesn't hit into your Iron Hands, but at the end of the day, Joseph has won this game here. A little bit of extra damage into the opposing Indeedee. Not very effective, doesn't do very much. Drain Punch comes through. It's going to be slow. It's going to be steady, but Joseph's Iron Hands is doing more damage than it is taking at this point, and Brian Collins will throw in the towel. Game number 2 going to Joseph Ugarte in round number 6. That is now 6-0 for Joe here. Coming in pretty hot as well after a pretty successful run at EUIC, making it into the top 8. Now 6-0 in day 1. You like to feel that as a player. That feels pretty darn good. So we are potentially going to be doubling up on videos here. The next regionals in Stockholm is going to be here in a little bit, and I want to be able to get coverage on that as soon as possible. Until next time, y'all, be safe, be smart, make wise decisions, and farewell.